So yeah, how are you doing? What's your morning been like? Busy, chill?
Pretty chill. I've been trying to tidy this place up a little bit, and it's like after I finished my book, and now everything is like
Nice.
picking up all the 8 million little pieces of like stuff that hadn't got done for you know a year.
Oh yeah. I know how that goes. When I'm in graphic novel mode, I'm just like doing the bare minimum maintenance, and then afterwards I'm like, oh my god, I live like this.
Right? What are all these cans doing here? Oh,
Like,
God.
so cute cartoonist life. um,
Yeah.
Anya says congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Good to see you, Anya. Um, oh, you're so professional. You got like your two color palette already. Like, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I'm trying to organize, you know, how all this stuff is done. I'm like, wait, I should actually paint each color that I'm actually using because otherwise, people are looking at this and going, "What?" So,
Amazing.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know if you have like a place you want to start or chat about, or otherwise I can just like, I don't know. I'm just kind of interested in seeing how you approach your painting, really, and then
Okay.
if you want to talk about your comic, like it can be pretty free form.
Oh, all
Yeah,
right.
we'll keep it chill.
Okay. Well, let's see. We've got two examples of my landscapes here. This one I think actually has a little more like watercolor in it. And I've kind of moved away from watercolor just because gouache is way easier to work with. Um, but you can see, it's kind of washy. I'm just
Hmm.
kind of like laying stuff on. Um, what I've got is basically a bunch of pre-mixed colors. Um, Somewhere along the line, after like, I don't know, 8 billion of these kind of sheets,
Beautiful. Wow.
doing color studies, trying to figure out, shadow tones and lighting tones and contrasting colors. I did a bunch of these and I did a bunch of things where I just basically mixed all of the tube colors that I had together just to see what they look like, and then kind of picked from that little grid to eventually arrive at like this little batch.
That's like the prettiest color testing page I've ever seen.
Yeah,
You
I
don't
mean
mess
it's
around.
no, I've tried really hard to just get really direct with everything. Um, like, you know, I do all this. I did a bunch of prep work over the years in like sketchbooks. You can see I've just like taped good stuff down here. And then after a while, I was like, okay, let's just try and get this in one if I can. And so this is the result after all of that.
It's
Um,
really cool.
and these are like, I feel like I need these colors. Like, okay, well, I gotta have like a red brown. Just a fire engine red is not going to cut it for everything. So I need like, a darker, more shadowy one. And then I need a couple of like, three colors basically.
Hmm.
Uh, some greens, some kind of warm neutrals, various blues, some like kind of middle of the road neutrals. These things I mostly used in my comic, and I don't do a lot of in landscapes. But
Hmm.
and then for like shadow tones, I try and do like this dark purple as much as I can instead of just black,
Hmm.
because I don't know how well it shows up on video, but the black is just really dull and dead,
Hmm.
and the purple you can make that a little less saturated even, but it works as a really nice dark, I think.
Nice.
So all of these are out of about 9 different tube colors, Holbein gouache paints.
Very cool. Do you find that you can that you've had to develop like different techniques with gouache, like as opposed to watercolor? Or do you find
Um,
that it's kind of samey?
it's real similar. Well, with watercolor is like trying to swim with like a weight in each hand because you're you're working so hard to, I mean, for the kind of work that I wanted to do, like more hard-edged, stuff that would work both as a landscape painting or as a comic. Um, so with watercolor, I was basically working with three colors all the time, just mixing them in different proportions, just to
Interesting.
just to cut back on the number of like permutations you could do.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a while, that got kind of monotonous, and I got into gouache, and I was like, wait, I can mix all these different crazy, um, pastel colors. I can have them ready to go, and then then I can make them washy. I can make them solid. I can do, uh, like solid tone on top of solid tone, or I can do more of a wash over things. Suddenly the possibilities for painting got a lot more. I mean, it got even more complicated than watercolor, but it was easier to fix my mistakes because you can always just
Mm,
paint over it, right?
right. Just a
The
lot,
opaque wash.
right. A lot
Yeah.
more dynamic application there. That's cool.
Oh yeah. And I learned to love opaque white gouache. It covers all of my mistakes.
Hell yeah.
And it's good for stuff like raindrops and things like that too. Let's
Gorgeous.
see. What else can I show off? Anything? Like here's a rain painting,
Beautiful.
and thank you. And so it's all, I was getting really washy with the background, and then here I was like, well, I need to have some definite like, strokes for the waves, and then all of the rain is just a teeny tiny brush.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Doing this over and over and over again until it looks okay. So
Nice.
I don't know. Is this okay? I'm like, I didn't prepare
No, it's great.
a lesson or anything. So all right. So should I like try painting something?
Yeah, let's get into it. Let's.
Okay. So let's do that there. All right, this is where I suddenly discover I don't remember how to paint.
Yeah. An audience always complicates things.
Right? We have the faithful big brush. Like here's like a typical how a painting will start. Literally, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just sort of improvising
Mm-hmm.
and seeing what comes out. This brush is great because it just goes on forever. The paint, just keeps going and going, and you can get really soft, or you can.
Do you have like a favorite like underpainting tone, like that sepia color, or do you just like use whatever is interesting to you in the moment?
I just kind of like seize on a color that looks good at the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is good for sort of just like a warm start, and then I'll
Mm-hmm.
paint over this with a cooler like blue color here. Like this would be the first layer in this painting, and then the
Mm,
blue is on top of that. And then if I've timed it right, it's all melted together in the right places.
very cool.
Um, so, and if it looks terrible, then I'll just paint over it with something really opaque and go from there. Like, yeah, I don't know about that. So before it gets too dry, So this is just the result of trial and error, like, you know, trying a billion things and figuring out starting out warm was the best way to go most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Do you know like which of well, I guess this is maybe not a problem for gouache, but I know like some watercolors can get really granular and grainy and maybe not blend as
Oh
well.
yeah.
Is that not as big of an issue with gouache?
Gouache gets super grainy because I think all of the pigment particles are bigger.
Okay.
Like I'm not 100% sure, but there's definitely a more grainy aspect to it, especially when you do, like you can see this is granulating quite a bit.
Yeah, true.
Like a, you know, watercolor maybe wouldn't do this so much, but it would have like blooms and you know, a lot more weird painting artifacts instead of just kind of spreading out evenly.
Right.
Um, the magic of gouache is that it's kind of like self-leveling. You
Hmm.
put a big blob of paint down and it just kind of spreads itself out evenly and granularly, instead of making those big, like, you know, water blooms that watercolor will do sometimes.
Interesting.
Um, so all this, like, let's see, I have to work really hard to put a bloom in there, I think.
Hmm.
It just kind of slides down the page.
Right, right.
um, yeah, but I like the granularity in general.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if I wanted to do like a more, you know, if I want to do comics work, obviously I'd work a lot more thickly. But this is just kind of playing, you know, noodling on the keyboard or whatever.
Yeah, totally. For your comics, do you, because I know you do inking, so are you laying down paints first and then inking over?
Uh,
Or,
I, I gave up on regular ink and I just use black gouache,
oh,
which
cool.
actually works. Yeah, it works real well. I mean, it's just as opaque
Mm-hmm.
and it's matte. I used to use, oh, what is it? The carbon ink, the waterproof ink,
Mm-hmm.
and it was great. But you know, if you put it on too much, it was shiny. So when you went
Hmm.
to photograph the artwork, you'd have all these like highlights on your ink.
Right.
Just weird. But the gouache is just like totally matte. It's dark enough, you know, and I don't have to worry about it like sliding around. Like ink tends to slide around on top of paint.
Okay.
They don't really stick together that well. I mean, you can definitely do it, but um, so all gouache is easier.
Very cool.
Let's see. All right, so now um, what I end up doing with this is I just kind of I start thinking in layers, like, you know, okay, I'm gonna have like a sky with like some stuff going on, and then I want something contrasty in the foreground.
Mm-hmm.
So here we've got that dark purple stuff. Um, and in a minute, I'll set this aside and let it dry for a while. And still, I don't know what any of this is. I'm gonna go back into it and um, see what it suggests.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of nice just working like at first abstractly with color because there's so much you can rely on with like atmospheric perspective,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
how we perceive color and distance. Like you can just rely on those like very basic principles and like set yourself up for success basically with like a random palette.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm relying heavily on atmospheric perspective. You know, if somebody wanted me to draw like, you know, the garden at Versailles or something, I'd be like, you need an architect.
Yeah.
You know, I do lots of washy things. So let's like do something different with this other one. Maybe this will be a rain painting or
Mm.
something.
Do you have any like painterly inspirations for how you approach color, or even how you do your comics? Like I find them very like classical cartooning.
Oh, well, I mean, I have painters I like Winslow Homer, John Singer Sargent, like these
Mm,
19th century, all these 19th century dude painters.
yeah.
Um, and then like when I kind of move out of that realm and more into like comics, it's more like I'm looking at Karascoet. Do you know them? They did,
Yes.
yeah, Beautiful Darkness and all that stuff. And like Hubert, their colorist, was really, I looked at a lot of his stuff when I was thinking about making my book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like I think his name is Beauville, Georges Beauville. He was an illustrator in like I want to say 1960s French illustrator. And he did
Mm-hmm.
these amazing looking gouache um, book illustrations, for like Jules Verne. And he didn't really do comics so much, but was just more like, the kind of fancy picture book illustrations you might see.
Right. Oh yeah, these are beautiful. Wow.
Yeah, he could turn just like a gouache blob into this, like he could really draw with it, I guess is the big appeal for me.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, who else? I always instantly forget, who I'm looking at, but when somebody asks, but like if you've ever seen Jack Cole's like watercolor work, the Plastic Man guy,
Let me look that up. Plastic Man.
he created Plastic Man, and he also he worked in like every aspect of cartooning. So he did like, girly magazine panel cartoons. He did stuff for Playboy. He did a comic strip, and some of his stuff is just painted in, I think, gouache and watercolor.
Oh
And
wow. I
again, just
didn't know he
really
did
beautiful.
Plastic Man. I recognize his like pinup girls though.
Oh yeah,
That is so funny.
yeah. Like he could do anything pretty much. Um,
Damn.
yeah, he's really good. I mean, the Playboy cartoons are like they're really dumb but pretty. But
Yeah.
um, Eldon Dedini, who also did Playboy stuff. I like his work a lot. Um, you'd probably recognize his stuff instantly too if you don't recognize the name. Like very painterly, uh, nicely drawn in the foreground and really washy in the background.
Mm. Elvin Deltini. Let's see.
Yeah, Dedini.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, yeah.
So my comic doesn't look anything like those guys, but I was definitely inspired by how they could do something so painterly and make it work.
Right. I think
This
also
this
like in your cartooning and your figures, I think I see like the DNA there.
hmm
Like extremely flowy, especially like the George's Beauville. Like I feel like that's a really strong
Okay.
influence, just like technique wise, which is really cool. Ooh, yeah, I
Um,
love those.
yeah, thanks. I got really into Searle for a while, so I was
Mm,
trying to do like a blend between his goofy, like weird figures and line work and my painting. Um, the final product isn't quite this inky, but definitely a guy I was looking at.
yeah, totally. I love those.
So,
Anya says, I get some Ludwig Bemelman vibes from your work.
oh, I know, like the name rings a bell, but I can't see the pictures. Was that
It
like a
looks like he
punch
did a lot
guy?
of I think so. It looks like he did a lot of like New Yorker covers. Um
Oh, okay, that's probably where I know it from. Yeah.
Very cool. much looser like drawing style, but like hyper colorful and like beautiful gestural textural painting.
Oh yeah,
Very
that's
cool.
awesome. Yeah, where did all the painterly cartoonists go, huh?
I know, right? Do you have anyone that you know of, like a contemporary artist who, all I can think of right now is like maybe Brecht Evans, who takes that
Oh
time
yeah.
to really where
That
painting is kind of the lead, like the star
yeah,
of
I
his
mean
art, I
his
guess.
stuff is incredible. I mean, I don't have any idea how he has the patience or the talent to do, those insanely intricate pages.
Yeah.
Um yeah, who else is like contemporary wise, I can't really think of anybody at the moment. Um people are doing great digital color stuff for
Hmm.
sure, but it's not like that, this kind of noodling style that you can get when you're just kind of playing with paint. I don't know what's going on with this thing.
Oh, and Anya said the Madeline books. I totally
Oh
I'm
yeah, 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 yeah,
not a big
totally. Yeah,
Madeline head, but very admire the art.
yeah. Like those great wonky lines,
Yes.
and out of proportion everything. I love that. I really got into Miroslav Sazek, who was a Czech illustrator in the 60s, 50s and
Hmm.
60s. And he did those "This is dot dot dot" series of books, like "This is New York, this is San Francisco, this is Paris." And they're these illustrated like picture book travelogues for kids showing like, here's the big head in Rome that you put your hand into and it'll bite down on you if you don't tell the truth.
Oh
Here's the
yeah.
fountain you throw your coins into. He just did spectacular. Like he did a book on Venice that just breaks my heart every time I look at it, because it's this precise, but yet still loosely painted, book with all these kind of goofy bobby up and down kind of 1960s people walking through it.
Hmm.
um, so that that was another artist that showed me that you could do these kind of painterly things, and they could be both loose in places and tight in places, like the ideal cartooning situation.
Right. Yeah, how do you kind of, what is like your personal kind of philosophy like with comics, since you're painting? How do you like choose when to like really go ham, I guess, on a panel, and when to like restrain
Yeah,
yourself, you know?
well, you know i I was really daunted by making this first book. I was like, I don't know if I can do this, so I tried to make it so I didn't have to go ham as much as possible.
Yeah.
Like, you try and do some really simple scenes, then you save your energy for the big panel showing, the landscape or whatever.
Right.
Um, and as I went through the book, I learned that, true enough, it's better to kind of pace yourself. Um, but like even for like simple scenes, when you're painting something, like if you have to paint a floor and then you have to draw all the little tile lines on top of it, um, that's that's like a middle of the road thing, I guess. You're getting a lot of mileage out of like one wash and a handful of lines,
Hmm.
uh, and trying to suggest things, as much as possible. This is still
Right.
more impressionistic than my actual thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Let me see if I can show you. Like, here's the panel that actually didn't get used in the book, because it turned out too dark.
Mm.
But this is one of the times I was like, okay, I can kind of stretch out here and do something elaborate, because I want to show, the clouds moving in at dusk, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Um,
Oh, so gorgeous. Just that simple swipe of like the brush of of that cloud is like so effective. It's like so
Yeah.
delicious, and it's like yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
so
mean,
pretty.
if it all goes according to plan, you're like, yes, I didn't won, you know.
Yeah.
And
It's all about
if
the
it doesn't, you're like,
finesse.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I had to use a lot of these like little square brushes for this book, just kind of
Mm,
filling in stuff, and then occasionally I would get to do a flourish, you know.
right.
Um, okay, is this kind of dry? Sort of. The landscape stuff is like total relaxation for me because I don't have to plan anything in advance. I don't have to measure. I don't have to, you know, do anything besides just kind of lay stuff down and see where it goes.
Right.
Um, and comics is a little more, uh, well, you know, you have to plan, you have to execute, you have to hope that it comes out and figure out how to fix it if it's not quite coming out.
Hmm.
Uh, But this is more like, oh, you know, we're going to do some happy little trees.
Yeah.
I never appreciated Bob Ross until I actually started landscape painting. And I was like, oh, I get it. I
You're like, he
totally
was
get it.
right this whole time.
Yes, yeah, right. Well, you know, if depending on what generation you're from, you're like, oh, that guy, or you're like, oh, he's a saint among men, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of TV painters when I was growing up and a little before that. And so he was just one of them that like, you know, I would see his face on a product or whatever, and I'd be like, whatever, I'm not buying your Bob Ross branded, you know, gesso or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, because there was, you know, you could get the Bob Ross palette, the Bob Ross brushes, the Bob Ross paint, the Bob
Right.
Ross afro wig, you know, the whole but like actually seeing him in action is different. You're like, oh, he could actually paint.
Hmm. Hmm. Totally.
I don't
So
know.
have you always been a painter? And like, I'm interested in like your creative history. Did you go to art school, or are you like
Um,
self-taught?
a little bit of all of that.
Hmm.
Growing up, I just wanted to be a cartoonist. So I was drawing like, you know, mecha and
Oh, wow.
motorcycles that could fly and, you know, like Macross stuff. Um, and then I kind of moved into comic strips and tried to be Bloom County for a while,
Mm,
you
okay.
know, and all that. And then finally, right before art school, I was like, oh, I should actually learn how to paint. Um, and so that was like, you know, that through art school was like 5 or 6 years of trying to figure out how to do watercolor, and then later how to do oil paint and how to do charcoal drawings of naked people and stuff like
Hmm.
that. Um, so I was like the cartoonist at the art school.
Oh,
Um, I
interesting.
would show I would show like my gigantic ink drawing, you know, where the model has been turned into like the Sphinx with like all this extra stuff that's not actually in the model room.
Hmm.
And my painting teacher would be like, "Why did you make this? You're supposed to make a painting. This is an ink drawing. What are you doing?" Um, like the very first incomplete grade I ever got in my life was in art school because I didn't paint what they wanted me to paint.
That's
So
so
that was
funny.
kind of weird. Yeah. Um, but I did go to art school. I went to BU's art school, which was actually very good at the time. I don't know what it's like now, but they taught you how to draw. They taught you how to do oil paint. They taught you how to do fresco. They taught you how to grind your own pigments.
Ooh, that's cool.
And yeah, it was like, you know, we're going to pretend that it's like 1940 or whatever, and you're just going to do all this stuff the traditional way, which is why comics didn't exactly fly so well. Um, but it was really good training. And, you know, I don't know, did you go to art school?
I didn't know.
No. Well, it's like a community in a way. Like if you've just been kind of self self-teaching yourself all this time, and then you get into art school, suddenly you're surrounded by all these other artists, and you're like, oh, okay, I don't feel quite so weird or crazy or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Did
So
your
that was
like,
actually a big plus.
yeah, totally. Was your family like artistic at all?
Yeah, they're mostly musicians.
Oh, okay. That's the
Um,
same with my family
yeah.
too.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the
Hmm.
only visually oriented creative person, and but on both sides of my family, they're all musicians. They're like some are on Broadway, some are in
Wow.
bands. Like,
Oh man, wow, that is cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether it's like, you get like the creative gene passed down through your family or what. But, like it seems to happen more often than not that people have, artists through different generations.
mm-hmm.
But, but that's interesting. Um, yeah, like there were like hobbyist painters and stuff in my family, like my grandparents. But I was the first one to go to art school, and
That's
I
awesome.
don't know about this one.
Do
Yeah.
you find like, so I have a lot of friends with, everyone's got a different experience with art school. Like, do you feel like it
Yeah.
left a positive impact on you, like creatively? Because I guess like to counter, like I know some people have experience where they're like, they go to art school and they actually do get a really good, like well-paying illustration job, but they find that there's a lot of like, I don't know, just a lot of pressure, or that art school kind of, I don't know, kind of shaped how they are able to enjoy doing art. I'm kind of interested in like if it was
Mm.
just like positive all around for you, or if there was like some residual effects where you're like, oh, I gotta constantly like be pushing my style, or I have to be doing, X, Y, or Z to be a successful artist.
Well, with the like I went in for fine arts, so they didn't really push us to do anything. Um, there was no illustration class or anything like that that I know of. And they basically just left us to our own devices as far as like, what we wanted to make, and also even stuff like how do you make a living at this once you're
Mm-hmm.
done. Um, so if anything, it was more like, okay, you're painting, good, and they didn't really
Nice.
push us to do. They didn't push us in one direction or another, except for maybe realism versus abstraction. It was a very
I gotcha.
realist school. Yeah. So when I got out, I was kind of like, well, now what do I do? So I kind of flopped around for a couple of years trying to figure out what I should do. And I think I was kind of tired of art after working on it 24/7 for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't spoil it for me, but at the same time, I was like, well, what is this for? You know, I know how to make these things now, but what do I do with it?
Right.
Um, and I'd kind of lost sight of, when you do something for a grade, you maybe lose sight of the the fun aspect of it or the spiritual aspect or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
Ugh, I don't know about this painting. I'm just kind of like, sometimes it's just like that. Um, yeah, I hear a lot of people or see a lot of people writing about how art school is a big pain in their ass, and you know there are unrealistic expectations put on them, and um, they weren't told like how difficult it is to actually make a living
Mm-hmm.
as any kind of artist. Uh, but I my experience was like the traditional, oh, I'll go to art school and learn how to paint, instead of, I'll go to Cal Arts and I will learn how to make films.
Right.
you know it was a lot more like, laissez-faire kind of deal than actual career training.
That's cool. I think that's probably a better type of learning environment. I mean, it's always good to get like career advice, but I feel like
Hmm.
I don't know, with like a lot of my friends, they had a hard time when they were finished with art school disentangling like the capitalistic element with their art. And so it's always kind of
Oh
been,
yeah.
it's always kind
Mm-hmm.
of, I don't want to say tainted, but it's just something that's constantly floating in their head when they're making work. Like, how can I adapt this so that it's marketable? Or, how can I make sure my
Oh
portfolio
yeah.
is currently following like illustration trends so that, art directors are
Mm-hmm.
into it. So yeah, that's cool that you had a good experience and it was all just about like getting you to like explore and learn like the fundamentals, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a lot of painting and drawing, and then going to like the library on my own and looking at different stuff and saying, well, what is this and how does it fit in?
Right.
Um, and a lot of it had nothing to do with what I was working on. Like I go to the library and I look up Cindy Sherman photographs or Nan Golden,
Right. Right.
and or film stuff. Like I briefly got into wanting to do film too, and just like
Mm-hmm.
you're just kind of flailing around and trying to find stuff that fits into whatever it is that you're doing and maybe shows you a different direction to go.
Yeah, totally. Just like ping ponging off things
Oh
that are
yeah.
interesting, sponging up what resonates with you. Yeah, it's so fun during that time in your life. I wish I could turn that kind of mindset on again. Sometimes I can, but it's a lot more difficult now that I'm older and have been doing this for so long.
Oh
But
yeah.
that
Yeah.
was always like the most euphoric part of my creative life was when I was just like wow, you can do this and you can do that, and then I would try and do that and be like I only like doing this part or that part, and
Right.
taking it with me to the next step, like yeah.
So you got a lot of chances to experiment when were you teaching yourself or just like um, taking art classes along with the liberal arts ones?
No, just teaching myself. I mean, just using the internet, like drawing and posting stuff online as like a little teen.
Oh
um,
yeah.
really, the only art class I took was when I was like 16 at the community college. There was just like a little like art club, and you could just go and paint, and there was a teacher there, and he was just very like, he's like, just do whatever is fun, like just
Ah,
very like emotionally supportive. And they'd bring
yeah.
in they'd bring in like models so we could draw them. But
I
yeah,
love
he
that.
was always just really sweet and didn't offer a lot of like like craft or like technical advice, but I
Hmm.
was totally just having a fun time being with like other artists who are trying also like weird stuff and had no
Oh
formal
yeah.
education. But other than that, I basically learned everything from like just looking at images online and books, and yeah.
Wow. I mean, there's a lot to be said for just having somebody in your life that's like, yeah, go on, try what's this, try this,
Yes,
experiment
totally.
with that. Um, because in art school, you get a little bit of that at the beginning, and then they're like, all right, you need to do it this way,
Mm.
or why have you given me this ink drawing instead of an oil painting of somebody's head?
They're like, stop
Yeah,
it.
cut it out, man. Mm, yeah, I'm just too old to have been in on like I was in at the ground floor of the internet, but I wasn't actually I wasn't on LiveJournal, like,
Right.
in an art group, or I wasn't doing what are they called? Owakaki, the screen drawing
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I missed that whole era. So, I kind of regret that. I wish I'd done more online stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely my scene. The okakis, the like, learning coding on Neopets and drawing
Oh
like
yeah, classic.
characters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's kind of funny how that sort of like character centered um approach to art kind of changed like my, I guess, relationship to drawing. Like instead of, if you approach it from more of like a traditional perspective, you usually are gonna learn like, how to do landscapes, how to do more a broader range of fundamentals. But I immediately was just like, I just want to draw these characters. And
Mm-hmm.
then
Yeah.
I will do the bare minimum of like backgrounds and coloring and
Yeah.
it's funny.
I think like I kind of I envy people that have that connection to character design, and where you can sort of like it seems to me, because I don't know how to do it, it's like what I'm doing here, but you envision a character and you say, well, I want her to be tall, and I want her to have this look or this fashion or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of build on that, the way I'm just kind of goofing around here.
Mm-hmm.
And I never got into that. I've been doing this more abstract stuff. Um, or if I wanted to design a character, it's more like, sitting for 1,000 years and being like, well, she needs to have a bow in her hair. Okay, what
You're like
else? Well,
done.
yeah, right. We want to do, shorts, and have like stick legs. Okay, that's. And people are like, oh, this is my OC, and they have like, this and that backstory, and this is their weapon and this is their girlfriend. I'm like, oh my God, how did you come up with all this stuff?
Yeah. They're like, this
Yeah.
is their like extended family, their
Right.
second cousin. Here's their like summer, their summer goth outfit, and then here's their like winter athleisure costume, and like, yeah.
Yeah, so much. And I'm like,
Very elaborate.
yeah, I wish I had that springboard inside of me, for
Mhm.
creating all that stuff. But it's much more, character design is much more, hard work.
Totally. I think there is something though to be said for like just like on the design aspect. Like I have this artist I really like. His name is Zach, and he does this comic called Nature of Nature's Art. It's
Mhm.
all drawn in Okaki. It's amazing.
Oh,
But
wow.
he has this philosophy of characters design where he thinks character design is like way kind of like overemphasized, and
Oh,
it's almost like a distraction from the story. And he also doesn't like the like hyper individualistic like energy that it brings when there's like you can recognize a character by their silhouette, um which is like that's like a, or like you can recognize them by like their color palette because they're like like Superman or whatever.
mm-hmm.
And I really like that idea of like, and a lot of all his characters are actually animals. And it's like they have like some different like features or characteristics that are different, but most of the time they're just like a dog, a wolf, like very basic. And
Yeah.
I love that idea that he's kind of like bringing a sense of like unity, and like
Mm-hmm.
even though all these characters have like extremely different and like vivid personalities, like they're still the same in a way. But yeah.
Does he have like, like a cast he reuses over and over, like Tezuka?
um I don't think there's been any crossover in his comics. All his comics, like he has like story arcs, and then each story arc has kind of their own cast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. um but yeah, I'm interested in like, so like the elaborate character, not your thing. Do your characters kind of only manifest when you have like a story for them?
Yeah, pretty much. I've only done, yeah, I haven't done a ton of comics, so I'm still figuring out how I do all that. But like
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on another book now, and it's like the story and scenes in it kind of come first, and then as that starts to become clear, I decide, well, okay, well, what kind of character do I need for this situation? Um,
Right.
you know, so the character starts out as, I don't know, a very vague blob, and then kind of slowly comes into focus depending on what kind of plot things I think up, or yeah, I don't know. Like for this book, I needed a kid adventure, and
Mm-hmm.
in the original incarnation, she was a little different. She was more evil.
Oh, really?
And yeah, like, and the storyline was totally different. You know, with
Hmm.
this first book, I churned through so many different ideas to get to the final place. It's like kind of hard to trace back, you know, the genesis of some of it. But you know, this is definitely not like the first stab at the character's personality. You know, there are a lot of different ways that it evolved, and then turned into this only slightly evil girl. Who,
She's so
you
cute. I
know,
love it.
yeah. I guess she's not evil. She's just really determined, and she sort of steamrolls over everything in her path. So
Nice.
that's that's
She's
good.
just strong-willed. Just a little, you know.
Yeah, that's it. Strong-willed. Um, yeah. So with the book now, I'm like, okay, well, I need two characters. All right, now character two is going to be a little older. I've decided,
Hmm.
and they'll be like the more experienced one and help, you know, character one. And you know, I haven't even come up with names yet, which I'm kind of like, ugh, I got to stop. You know, character one and character two is getting tiresome to type over and over.
Right.
So,
That's so interesting.
but
Yeah, I find it really fascinating when like storytellers have that kind of relationship with character and story, like they're just like really intertwined.
hmm
For me, I'm like I'll make a character, you know, just for fun without a backstory. Like I'll just be playing with like how they look and how they like, you know, their comportment and expressions. Sometimes I'll like drop them in different like AUs. Like I'll have like a medieval version of this character or like a sci-fi version of
oh
this
wow,
character. And then like a
yeah,
story for, you know, each universe that they're in. Um but
wow.
yeah, I like this kind of also like holistic approach to story and character. It's really neat.
How do you just come up with AU stories like that? Like, you know,
I don't know. Probably just from I mean, it's basically just dropping them into like, you know, genre conventions and then like being like,
oh,
oh, it would be
okay.
cool to make the, you know, this character is like, I don't know, like a badass butch lady, like maybe she's a space bounty hunter because I want her to have like a plasma gun. Just like riffing basically.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So you just do like a whole bunch of little sketches of different scenes or different outfits or whatever.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That kind of makes sense. Okay. I was like, you know, how can you write all these actual stories to put them in?
Yeah, sometimes
Mm,
I do. I have like
yeah.
a writing buddy that we actually do collaborate a lot. We write, I think we wrote like
Cool.
5 different AUs for these 2 characters. They're like,
Wow.
and yeah, it was pretty insane. But we just like really
That
love them. They're just like 2 really
yeah.
sad, messed up, you know, himbos,
Oh,
and it was just fun to drop them into different horrible situations.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that is great.
Um so as you're painting, do you want to talk a little bit about your book? Because I know it's available for pre-order, right?
Yeah. Pretty
Sweet.
much everywhere now, I guess.
So
Um,
exciting. Oh,
yeah,
okay. Sorry, I'm like looking at you
I went to
stamping and I'm
different.
like, very cool. I
Oh
love
yeah.
this.
This is something new I just kind of got back into. I used to do a lot more. I don't know. It's not really obvious on here. I used to do a lot more textural things with watercolor
Oh, very cool.
and
Secret
colored
sponge
pencil.
technique. I like it.
Secret sponge technique. Yeah, this is like the standard like um, synthetic sponge you get if you go to Michael's and you get like a bag of sponges, you
Right,
know,
right.
in the painting department. And I've got like a hot side and a cool side, so I don't just get gray mush on both sides.
Nice.
Uh,
So smart.
yeah, just you know, these things are fun too, but the pattern is so chunky. It's you have to kind of be careful with it because
Mm-hmm.
this one has much smaller like I don't know holes in it or whatever, so it looks better.
Right, right, right. That makes
Um,
sense.
so yeah, the book is called The Prisoner of Shiverstone. It's a middle grade graphic novel. available for pre-order now. It's coming out next spring, I think, like next April, if all goes well.
Nice.
You know, if the supply chain issues in the world don't delay it or something.
Yeah, I know.
And it's sort of a science fiction-y thing about this girl, Helga Sharp, and she ends up on the distant island where the government has stuck all of the mad scientists over the years, you know, for like the past 40 or 50 years. So it's basically a mad scientist colony at this point.
Oh, wow.
You know, it used to be a jail, and now it's like it's their little community. So she goes to the island to try and bust her grandfather out of jail, as it were. You know, while telling them that she's been shipwrecked. But it turns out nobody on the island even knows her grandfather's still alive, because he's stuck inside a giant crystal on display in a museum. So, so, you know, it's kind of like half weird heist movie and half science fiction-y thing and half another half. I don't know, homage to Searle or something.
That's awesome. And
yeah,
is the crystal on the island, or is it somewhere else?
No, it's in a museum inside a mansion there.
Oh, okay, very cool.
So let's see. I'm looking to see if I have a picture.
Yeah, if you wanna share like any pages, that'd be cool too.
Yeah, I'll like show. You know, they don't want me to show too much of the book, I guess. But like this is.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So this is the museum, and Helga and the agender person in the armor there are going up and talking about this big crystal, which has a person inside of it. Yeah. So. So that's that, and it's my first book, and I hope it comes out on time.
Yes, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. Yeah, and I have another book. It's a 2-book deal, so I have another one that I have to write. I don't know whether it's going to be a sequel or a totally different story, but you know, I'm trying to do both. And that's going well. And you know, anybody that's working on a graphic novel now, you have all of my sympathies for, you know, because I found out just how difficult it is, you know, to finish one of those things. Yeah.
It's
like,
a rough one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like A Map to the Sun, that was like, what, 300 pages or something?
Yeah. She was long.
Yeah. Like my book is like half that. And I was like, oh, this is a lot.
Is your next book also gonna be like a middle grade book?
Yeah. That's where I'm working right now. And yeah, maybe along the same lines as this first one, like another science fiction-y one. I haven't quite worked it out yet. But,
oh, very cool. Is that kind of where like your heart is in like middle grade adventures, or do you think you'll like branch out in the future to like adult work or like young adult work?
Oh, you know, I'd like to do a little bit of all of that. Middle grade was just sort of where this book landed after working on it for a while. You know, I didn't set out to make that, but I was trying to, I don't know. I didn't really have any plan in mind, or at least I can't remember what it was at this point on the other side.
Gotcha.
But you know, I would totally like to do some autobio stuff and maybe some YA stuff and some adult stuff. You know, I'm still working out what it is I'm actually capable of in terms of comics.
I mean, that seems like anything.
Well, I would hope so, but you know, like you sometimes you run up against a wall with stuff and you're like, oh, I just can't, you know, I can't do this, like, you know, 100-volume manga series about, you know, fighting tournaments. You know, that's just not me or whatever.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean,
If I,
I mean, but why not? Like fight. How
why
about
not?
like a fighting mech tournament comic? Like, like if Cliff Roberts did Gundam, like that could be really cool, you know?
I can't even draw people punching each other, you know? I was never good at that. I don't know, I was good at people talking in comics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like this book, the Shiverstone book is actually fairly talky, I think, for a middle grade book. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. Um,
Nice.
you know, a lot of dialogue, a lot of little panels and things like that.
Very
Uh,
cool.
yeah, but I don't know. I'm still working out what it is I can do and what it is I'll be allowed to do, and what will work commercially.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Did you get any like pushback or like I don't know, did you have any obstacles with this graphic novel? Either like personally, creatively, like editorially? Like how was your
Um,
experience?
well, I mean, the editors were pretty hands off at Abrams, and you know, so I didn't get a lot of pushback there. It was more like, you know, oh well, this part could be clearer, or you know, what if you added this bit in here? It was mostly about you know, making sure that the audience would, you know, be able to parse the thing. Um, like personally, yeah, I don't feel like I got a lot of pushback. Like people seem to like the pitch of the thing. Um, but the you know the struggle was with myself is actually you know getting up and doing like you know a whole painted page a day or every 2 days or whatever it was. It worked out to be.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, nobody really nobody really pushed back about the story content or anything like that. So I
That's
was
cool.
glad. Yeah. Which of course now I'm like, well, hey, you know, maybe I should get some pushback. Maybe I should do something, you know, I should try something that they'll actually, you know, come up short on or something. But,
Right, right.
you know, I haven't got to that point yet.
That's cool. And like, yeah, that's like a encouraging first like graphic novel experience. Like that was kind of the same with maps. They were like
Mm-hmm.
they basically, you know, they bought it and they didn't really see it till it was done because I don't do scripting or thumbnails. I just draw it
Oh wow,
page by
really?
page. So
Yeah. I,
so it was a lot
wow.
of they had a lot of faith in me, which was really flattering. But yeah.
Oh, that's so great. I mean, I guess I did have to jump through a couple of hoops there, and that they wanted a script and thumbnails from me. Um, I can't find the sketchbook that I used, but wow, I can't imagine just making it and like saying, "Yeah, it's coming."
Yeah.
Did you just send them like installments or something? Or
Um, no, I would just check in every couple of months and be like, I'm on page, you know, whatever, and then give them a projected like I need like maybe 6 more months to finish this last half. Once I did all the inks, I sent that to them, and then coloring took me like I think like 2 months.
oh wow,
Um, but yeah.
this is the
Ooh,
this is the sketchbook slash like cargo cult object I made. Um,
is
you know,
this like your manuscript kind
um,
of?
I did. Well, I actually went through a bunch of different iterations. I did a bunch of thumbs like this, and then they wanted me to write out a script, which I came up with new stuff that I didn't think of when I was just drawing it. And then
Mm,
this is like the second batch of thumbnails, and you know, just kind of um,
that's very
penciled really
cool.
roughly, but with like the clearest lettering I could manage, so that they could actually read, you know, the story.
Very cool. Do you hew pretty closely to your like thumbnails and roughs, or do you
Pretty
change stuff?
much.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Very cool.
Well, I mean, you have to because the problem I ran into is that all the lettering is digital. It's all in InDesign, and the artwork is, you know, on a piece of paper. So I had to make a grid system on the computer and figure out, this balloon on InDesign is actually, so many grid spaces on the actual piece of paper. And then
Oh,
sometimes I
okay.
would have to shift stuff and make panels bigger or smaller to accommodate all the lettering.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. But it was mostly pretty close unless I came up with a better idea, or had to simplify something like, I'm not going to draw this angle. I'm going to draw like, okay, we're going to see them from the waist up, over here, instead of like, here's a crane shot with like, their heads here and,
Yeah.
some plants here and whatever.
You're like, let's just simplify this.
Let's just
Make it
simplify it.
less
Yeah.
painful for me.
Yeah. But
Yes.
having this thing like this basically was clipped open, so I could look at it while I was laying out each page.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like my security blanket, so I could just kind of get right into drawing the page and feel like I had a roadmap. So here's like a demo of like how that would go. So I have I have a panel in here that I'm getting a reference from,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would go in and just kind of draw everything in very lightly.
Mm-hmm.
This is another trick. I long ago learned to stop penciling everything, because if you just do everything in paint, you don't have to erase.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
So you save yourself a step, and also you're not, destroying your paper with all of that.
Right.
The stuff you figure out after like 10 years of doing it the other way. You're like, I didn't have to do that at all.
Yeah.
Why did I do this? Why did I listen to Stan Lee and How to Draw the Marvel Way?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I think like the actual secret of cartooning is figuring out how much of that stuff you can jettison and still make it work. Like, oh, I
Yes,
don't have to
totally.
work in ink. I don't have to draw everything in pencil first. I don't have to, whatever. I can just draw a dog with like 3 lines and it's okay.
Yeah, for sure. Anything to cut down the time between like your brain and the paper, basically.
Mhm. Yeah, just like make it as direct as possible. That was like my goal for forever with paint and cartooning, because I knew I wanted this kind of messy painterly style. Not messy, but you know what I mean, like free.
Right.
And I wanted to figure out how to do it, with the least amount of fuss while actually still looking good. And so that went through, ink to watercolor to ink with watercolor to ink with gouache, and finally just gouache, because it's just easier that way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So just kind of like this.
Oh, I was gonna say, Banu has a question. He says, was there any specific approach to color in your upcoming comic, like using color for mood, anticipation, like color as symbology or, atmosphere?
Like, I don't know how well I did like with symbolic color, but I did try to assign all of my locations a different color scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's the book takes place in this mansion mostly, and so you're bouncing between these same rooms over and over, and then like with some outside stuff.
Oh,
So I
okay.
would try to come up with a palette for each space that was distinct. So, subconsciously you would immediately know, oh, they're in the pool room again, or they're in the atrium or whatever.
Nice.
And I tried to do a little bit of like mood lighting, I guess you would call it. Like here's a nighttime scene.
Oh, gorgeous.
Thank you. Just trying to, you know, do everything in basically monochrome and evoke, you know, it's a moonlit night. It's still pretty dark. There's a forest that she has to walk through.
I love it.
So yeah, I wish I could do more. Like I feel like for this book I had to kind of tone it down, but someday I would like to do more like, you know, Mary Blair type, really contrasty stuff.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and just go wild with all the with the shadow tones and things like that. Yeah. Here's like these are studies after some other cartoonists like Searle and Sampé, and one I did myself. And you know, it would be great to just kind of go nuts with like, you know, just make everything washy and weird and abstract and have it work. I didn't quite figure out how to do that with this book, but maybe a future one.
Yeah, it's almost, it's funny how like the looser it looks, it takes it, like I feel like more planning and more like instinctual knowledge to be able to just like nail it, because you kind of have to just do it immediately, especially when you're working in paint, like because it's so easy to like overwork stuff. Yeah, whenever I'm trying to be like, oh, I want to like look more spontaneous like with my inking, and then I try and do it, I'm like, no, I can't. I can't. Like I'm gonna connect these lines and I'm gonna hatch a little bit and like, you know, bring out the form a bit more. And then when I'm done, I'm like, it was fun to do like for my brain and like for my like OCD, but in the end it looks like overworked and like too heavy.
Yeah. I think eventually, like if you do that often enough, you're like, I have to bail out now, so this is going to have to be good enough, you know.
Yeah.
Your own fatigue can save you sometimes. But,
yes, totally.
I don't know. So like this is the basic, you know, technique I was using for the book. Everything pretty opaque.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So my big decision now is trying to decide if I'm actually going to paint the next book or if I'm going to join everybody else and do it digitally.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Full digital, huh?
I don't know. Yeah, I got a Samsung tablet and, you know, like some drawing apps. I'm like, can I actually do this?
Oh, nice. Yeah, I know Jillian Tamaki, their current, like they're working on a graphic novel now and it's all digital, and I was like, oh my gosh, wow.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, have they done digital stuff before? Was Super Mutant Magic Academy digital or was that all ink?
I want to say yes, it was digital, but I'm not sure. But I know they do a lot of digital art. But yeah, when people can do fully digital comics and maintain like, I don't know, I feel like there's, not that digital comics are bad, like I draw digitally all the time, but I feel like it's hard to maintain over basically in a long form. I don't know. It's definitely an interesting process. I'm always curious to see when artists approach a full book digitally and how it affects like their style and like stylistic choices, I guess. Do you draw a lot digitally, or will this basically be like a new medium for you?
It's basically a new thing. Like I've done, you know, digital painting and such before. But I never really got into it because I hated drawing on, you know, like the plastic Wacom, you know, tablet, the bamboo or whatever. And if you're actually drawing on the screen, it's like the illusion of actually painting is a little better, so that seems more tolerable. But
right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, you know, it's a race between this feels really good, but at the same time, it's a lot of effort.
Yeah.
And if you make a mistake, you can backtrack and you can fix it, but you can put in an adjustment layer and change the entire palette, digitally. So I'm like,
Yeah, totally. That's
it's
very
hard to
cool. I
decide.
wasn't even thinking about like you doing fully painted digital comics. I was thinking about like maybe inked comics, but now that
Oh,
you're saying that, I'm like, oh, that would be pretty cool actually, because I feel like digitally painting is it's just like a different animal than digitally inking a comic.
oh
Um,
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
think that could be so like super fun for you for sure.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I'm still working it out. I'm still recovering from painting this book. you know.
Yeah. When did you finish this one? Has it been like a couple
Um,
months now?
this one was done in June.
Mm.
Um, and I like I it's all kind of a blur, like the last few years. So I don't know really when I started it, but I think it was a little under a year's worth of work.
Oh, okay, nice.
Um, yeah, and it's nearing the end stages of the production line now. I think like we're talking covers and end papers and stuff like that.
Oh, so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe it's real at this point. Still, I'm like, wow, this is actually. I was buying another book the other day, and I just kind of offhandedly looked up my own book, and I was like, oh, there it is.
It's
It's a
gonna be
real
so.
thing.
I hope since it's coming out next year that you are able to do like book tours and stuff. That will be in like a
Oh, imagine, yeah,
you
like,
know, and cons finally. That would be really exciting.
uh, you actually miss cons?
You know, a little bit, yeah.
Hmm.
I'm missing cartoonists, and
Yeah.
I miss seeing what everyone's up to, and also just traveling in general, leaving the house in general. I miss that.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's that's something to miss for sure.
Yes. Well, we're coming up. I think we went a little overtime. We're about 8 minutes
Oh,
overtime, but
okay.
thank you so much, Lynette. I don't wanna keep you because I'm sure you're busy, but I'm so thrilled that we got to do a demo with you. And thank you
Yeah,
everyone who came and hung
thanks for
out.
inviting me.
Everyone, if you look at the chat, everyone's like beautiful work, beautiful panel.
Oh, thank you.
Um, they're wowed. So this was like so fun.
Oh,
Um Nasmo says thank you. Anya says that was
oh.
amazing and thank you.
Thanks everyone for watching and
Yeah,
for
this was so
listening to me
cool.
yammer.
Yay. Okay, I'm gonna stop the record. Oh wait, actually, do you want to plug yourself? Since we're gonna share
Um,
this later, do you want to like your
yeah, yeah.
socials where people can pre-order your book?
Okay. I'm Linette Moore, and I'm O Tiniest Planet. That's OH Tiniest Planet on Instagram and Twitter. You will have to fight your way through the selfies to see my artwork, but you can do it. And my book, The Prisoner of Shiverstone, is coming out in April 2022. And I don't have an easy link to pre-order it, but if you search for Prisoner of Shiverstone on your favorite bookstore search engine, it should pop up. Or just in Google, you'll find it in a bunch of different places.
Yay.
Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lynette.
thank you.
Yay.
I'm glad to be here.